It's not me either. One person.
No second.
You specifically meant me?
Call the meeting to order. I want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Upper Smoky Indian Band. Adoption of the agenda.
So move.
A second?
Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes for the April 6th, 2021 regular meeting council.
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded. Errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Good on staff report. 6.1 development variance permit for 155 West China Creek Road. Carried. Speak to that real quick.
I can. So the applicant is provided us application for DVP to construct a fence in their front setback. They're asking for a 6-foot see-through fence.
Any questions? Councilor McLean?
Is there any relevance to the fact that it's a see-through fence to do with this variance permit?
It's more attractive to the neighborhood when they're see-through, when they're not just like a solid wall of a 6-foot fence.
In my mind, that's, I don't know, I have a hard time understanding that whole thing. I can understand that you don't want to have blocked in places and everything else. So if a person's going to do a see-through fence, personally, I don't have a problem with how high they put it. If they want to keep deer out,
Yeah.
You want to make the motion? Approve it?
I would. I would.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilor McLean.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Wills. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.2 business facade improvement grant for 139 Vermilion Avenue. Carried.
Sorry.
Mark's got to start coming.
We have an application for a business facade improvement for 139 Vermillion Avenue. It's the Chiropractor Center, and they're asking for the full grant amount of $5,000 to improve the facade from the canopy down, which would include hardy board, some brick, some accents around the doors.
Any questions? We have a staff recommendation to approve. Somebody want to make that motion?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott, seconder.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Willis. Any questions on the motion?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yep.
I'd just like to say that it's great to see a couple of businesses now have taken advantage of this facade grant application process, and this particular one is right next to Town Hall, just behind us here, and I believe the actual price tag for the work he's doing is in the $18,000 range. So he's applied for the maximum of $5,000, and it's going to make that corner look very, very attractive.
I agree. Thank you. Anybody else? I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.3 PXA Lease Renewal, CRO.
Yes, the existing lease has expired, I believe, as of January 1st. We continue with our agreement with them on a month-to-month with the overholding clause, and so we are recommending that we renew the lease. They've been our leaseholder since they're became a society, I think, back in 1969 or whatever. Or it's been a long time anyway, and so we're recommending that we renew the lease.
Anybody have a
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Elliott, seconder. Cool. Questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.4, landfill waste wood chipping and grinding. Jared?
Yeah, so as a part of the town of Princeton's vision for a clean community, the landfill takes in waste wood and clean yard waste free of charge. With COVID upon us, it's been happening, like our stockpiles are kind of filling up pretty quick. So it's in need of processing at this time.
So is this a one-time a year thing, or are we having to do it more now?
Well, typically it's every 2 years, but it's been a year and it's full at this time.
Yeah.
Councilor McLean?
Where does it go?
They use when it gets ground down, they use it for top fill and cover, and things like that at the landfill.
And that's, is in terms of our landfill, blah, 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 methane and all that kind of stuff, it's all in line with that sort of thing?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have we ever considered cost of purchasing our own chipper if it's,
Yeah, it's like over $1 million for a chipper.
oh,
Yeah, it's pretty
Much
pretty
cheaper.
expensive.
lease it? Thank you.
Oops.
Yeah, can't do that.
In the past, you said it was every 2 years, has it been gradually increasing up till now, or?
I
Oh,
don't.
one time we used to burn it all, so.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty consistent every 2 years. Yeah, just with COVID upon us, everyone's cleaning up.
So we have a staff recommendation that council authorizes staff to award the 2021 landfill wood chipping and grinding contract to Huska Holdings, improve the payment for the waste management landfill operation budget.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Questions on the
Hear
motion?
that?
All in favor? Carried, thank you. Property tax write-off, James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yes, the staff has placed a property tax write-off on the agenda for tonight. Typically, property tax write-offs are placed on the agenda when a property tax has been levied due to an error in the assessment roll. For the specific property, this is a lease that dates back to our airport. The airport actually is on 68 acres on this folio, roughly divided through by Airport Road. There's a portion that's north of Airport Road and a portion that's south of Airport Road. Obviously, the area south of Airport Road is on the landfill, or sorry, on the airport and not appropriate for cattle grazing for obvious purposes. But the north side, it actually dates back to when the federal government ran the airport previous to 1996, that this lease was signed for that area north of Airport Road and the airport lands. The last lease dates back to 2017 when it was transferred from the property owner who had deceased, and his wife assigned the lease for 1 year to her son. The son operated for 1 year and then abandoned the lease. So BC Assessment at that time sent out a query to the previous leasehold owner who ceased telling BC Assessment that it was actually still leased to be a farm purpose. So as per their policy, they converted it from farm use to residential use, which the property was never intended to be a residential property at this point. It was surplus airport land. So it sat there for the 2019 and 2020 taxation years as a residential property, when in fact there was no lease that existed. So this corrects that error. The property tax will be written off and the portion will be applied to the proper class for the 2022 taxation year, as per the community charter.
Anybody have any questions of James?
Well done, James. Thank you.
Any question?
Well, I was
He's
told
got
today that there was a bill outstanding on this, and that's what we're trying to get written off.
That's right. That's correct.
So when you mentioned that he had it for 1 year and abandoned it, did he make the province aware of that, or?
Not to my knowledge, no.
That's the issue.
So that's okay?
So in the supporting documentation, BC Assessment did reach out to the homeowner, or to the leasehold, and the lease was not in effect for 2018 and beyond. So they've canceled that folio out of the assessment roll for 2021, but they can't do it previous to 2021. We have to write off the taxes and apply them to the proper class next year to recover the funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we have a staff recommendation. Councilor Coyne, seconder. Councilor Lewis, questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Earth Day programs. So, I'll speak real quick for this. You'll see in the agenda that Cody's been working to come up with some Earth Day programs, some cleanup, and working with the Vermilion Forest Field Naturalists to do a cleanup down at Cormac Marsh. And, yeah, I think there's a, poster that went up today as well, to let public know and with public involvement. Any questions? Okay, our staff recommendation, council receive Earth Day programs report for information only.
Make that motion.
Councilor Gould, seconder. Councilor Elliott, any questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Council reports. Councilor Elliott.
Short and sweet this go around. On Friday, April 9th, I met here with you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Gould and the President of the PXA to discuss a number of things, including the lease that we've already discussed earlier in tonight's meeting. And on the 15th, I attended a Museum Society Zoom meeting with Mayor Coyne, and one of the items on the agenda was the discussion with regards to the MOU with the town of Princeton, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilor McLean.
All I have to report is that my place of business will be shut down until after the long weekend in May. I realized I spoke to it a little bit last week or last meeting, but again, the part of having to shut down, I realize that there's scientific reasons for that. What I really liked to hear was that the areas, when I take into consideration that Interior Health has nearly 800,000 people in it, I think Vancouver Coastal has 1.2 and Fraser Health has 1.5. Not really dissimilar, and yet we get readings of 70 and 20 and 50 and 100 and whatever, and they're a little bit more getting readings of 700 and 800 and 500 and whatever. So I guess from my perspective, it probably should have been done a long time ago in terms of trying to at least keep it where it's the worst. And I could almost see them at one point in time thinking about taking the vaccinations and putting them where the problems really are. But I can only imagine the, the amount of feedback you'd get in terms of that. But anyway, let's hope that this accomplishes what they're trying to accomplish and that we have a new day on the horizon coming. That's everything.
Councilor Lewis.
I have no meetings to report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Gould.
Nothing further other than that same meeting that Councillor Elliott discussed.
Okay. Test. Can anybody hear me?
I just got a message. Can you hear me?
Are you the only one they can't hear?
No point in having to, that one. Can you hear me now? Yep, okay. Thank you. So I'm not going to go through all my meetings because I'd bore you. I've had one really interesting meeting. I got invited to engage with the Minister of State, Nathan Cullen. It was through SILGA, and they were talking about the future of Flinro and what the ministry will look like. In the future, he's been tasked by the Premier to engage with stakeholders and the public and whatnot, and see if Flinro should stay as the ministry it is, or I guess be split up how it used to be, because at one time Flinro was made up of a whole bunch of different ministries. So they're in the process of trying to figure that out. It was an interesting meeting. There wasn't a lot of us on there. I think there was about 7 of us, and a lot of people had the same complaints that Flinro is just too big now. One arm doesn't know what the other arm's doing, and they kind of clash with each other on a regular basis. Even the ALC was on there, and they had issues with Flinro, which I thought was kind of funny because everybody seems to have an issue with ALC. So it was good to see that it was kind of across the board. The other one is more of a information. So people have been having issues in Princeton being able to book vaccine dates. I was in contact with Interior Health today. Throughout the day, they thought it was up and running, but it's not yet. And the appointments, so there won't be any appointments for the rest of April, they think, but we should see them up for May. They've been transitioning to a new provincial booking system, and that seems to be where the issue is that the system that Interior Health was using, they're now going to standardize one that the province is using, and the transition didn't put in the allocations for our clinic, I guess, is what I'm led to understand. So we should be able to get bookings for clinics again here, hopefully tomorrow. They're hoping that the calendar will be up and running again tomorrow, and people will be able to start booking in for appointments again right after that. So hopefully we'll see tomorrow that it'll be up and running again. So that'll be what I report on today. Correspondence receive and file. So we have 8.1, which is the neighborhood small grants. 8.2, the SILGA spring newsletter. 8.3 is a Kudos from Hruby. And 8.4 is Lyme disease awareness. I'm just going to bring out one just to note. It's a kudos and recognition to the mayor and council and staff of Princeton. I need to reach out and recognize the great job everyone's doing. We recently purchased a home in Princeton, and I'm absolutely delighted when walking around downtown. I love the statues of the animals and how they are lit up at night. I also like the lighting on the trees and how clean and litter-free the area is. When I walk somewhere and see litter, I always make a point to pick it up. The layout of downtown being away from the highway is good. The entrance to downtown and visitor center looks great. I really like the walkways and the pass-throughs between the dead-end streets. The big stairs from downtown are great for exercise. The whole area is very walkable. Princeton has a sense of community, which is also very good. Well done, everyone. You should all be very proud of the great job you're doing. So I think that was just some good news that you'd like to hear every now and then. Can I get a motion to receive and file 8.1 through 8.4?
So moved.
Councillor McLean, seconder. Councillor Elliott. Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Number 10, bylaws and resolutions. James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the original motion as on the agenda has changed slightly up until late this afternoon. I asked council as a recommendation to adopt the tax rates bylaw. We had a slight change in the RDOS requisition. So that had to, the rates had to be adjusted. The actual bylaw is not any different than the one that was presented last week, or last council meeting, but the RDOS and the regional hospital district rates have changed due to a couple of miscalculations. Apparently, from what I heard from regional district finance staff, the transit requisition for Karameas was applied to Princeton, and the transit requisition for Princeton was applied to Karameas.
That would be okay.
So, yeah, I did state that that would be fully acceptable to the residents of the town of Princeton, and after a good chuckle was unfortunately shot down. So the rates that are in the tax rates bylaw now fully cover the requisition to the regional district and the hospital district. And so the staff recommendation has changed to rescind the third reading from last week, to amend the bylaw to revise the tax rates for Schedule A, and then to give that bylaw third reading, and we will adopt the tax rate bylaw schedule. The recommendation will come through for the May 3rd regular meeting of council, which is within the community charter. I have to submit everything to the local government branch of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs by May 14th, so we're well within that deadline.
Okay, so I'll read out the whole staff recommendation. The council rescind third reading of the Town of Princeton Tax Rates Bylaw number 1000/2021, and that council amend Schedule A of the Town of Princeton Tax Rates Bylaw number 1000/2021, and that council give the Town of Princeton Tax Rates Bylaw number 1000/2021 third reading as amended. Does anybody?
Make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Willis, seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor Gould. Any questions? Councillor McLean.
So if I'm understanding correctly, our tax portion that we receive hasn't changed.
No,
But-
the municipal portion does not change with this amendment. The only thing that changes is the flow-through tax collection to the regional district and to the hospital district.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Carried, thank you. That takes us to agenda item conclusion. Motion to close, that the meeting be closed to the public for the purpose of considering the following: acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land and improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality.
So moved.
Councillor McLean, second, Councillor Elliott, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Good night, everybody.